Welcome to the Becoming babyREADY podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome to 2026, everyone. This is a brand new year of the Becoming babyREADY podcast, and I decided this year not to continue to do seasons because I wasn't doing seasons the way other people do. I think some shows have 12 episodes or 15 episodes or something like that in a season, and I aired, I think, 52 episodes last year and said that was one season. So either way, this is my fourth year of putting these shows together. So if you're new to the podcast, please go and check out the previous episodes and listen to the stories of the people that have come before. But I want to just do a brief recap of 2025 of the Becoming babyREADY podcast. It was another year of stories and another world of new families that I was able to introduce you to. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you already know this. Becoming babyREADY has never been just about how babies are made. It's about how families are made, how people make meaning, how queer folks again and again look at systems that were never designed with us in mind and decide whether, how, or if we can find a way through them. And that question, whether, came up more in 2025 than ever before. Because as much as this podcast celebrates queer joy, queer resilience, and queer possibility, it also has to tell the truth. For many people, the path to family creation has become so expensive, so bureaucratic, and so layered with financial risk that it can feel profoundly out of reach. Surrogacy, adoption, IVF, reciprocal IVF, egg and sperm donation, fertility preservation, legal fees, medications. Each one of these carries a price tag, and often many price tags stacked on top of one another. And while insurance may technically exist, coverage is frequently partial, conditional, or entirely inaccessible to queer families unless we meet very specific, often heteronormative criteria. So when we talk about queer family creation, we are also talking about access. And when we talk about access, we're talking about privilege. 2025 was a year where those realities sat quietly and sometimes loudly in the background of nearly every conversation that I had. I've been blessed. I've had the opportunity to speak with some truly wonderful and remarkable humans over the course of this show, and I am so excited to say that I already have some phenomenal stories already in the can for 2026. Last year started with conversations like when I spoke with filmmakers Danny and Andy Valentine, whose work, The Mattachine Family, doesn't just tell a story about queer parenting. It reflects the emotional weight of navigating systems where love alone is never enough. Their conversation reminded us that even when representation exists, the real-life pathways remain complicated, costly, and uneven. Have you checked out that movie? Have you had the opportunity to rent it or buy it on Apple? If you have not, I encourage you to do so. And while you're doing that, make sure you grab the box of tissues because you're going to need it. It's a beautiful story. It's a phenomenal story. And it is so naturally depicted that most of us watching can see ourselves reflected in the characters in the movie. It's definitely something to spend some time cozied up watching this winter. I sat with people like Christopher Catisse, whose parenting journey spans decades and whose story reminds us that queer families have always existed, even when the medical and legal systems offered little to no support. His reflections carry the weight of history, a time when the question wasn't, how much will this cost, but is it even allowed? I also had a lot of fun with Christopher when we flipped the script and he interviewed me, asked me questions, because he is an author and he's been writing the Who's Your Daddy column for Q Salt Lake, and you can find that at qsaltlake.com, for many years. So it was fun when he took the time to ask me some questions that he could reflect on some of the work that I've done and shared that with his readership. Today, though, the question about is it even allowed has evolved, but it hasn't disappeared. Now it's often, can we afford this? What happens if it doesn't work the first time? What happens if we run out of money before we run out of hope? And what I often see people doing is mortgaging their houses, applying for second mortgages, taking out loans. And to people who don't have to take these steps, that can seem extreme. But the people who don't have to take these steps are often the people who already have the family of their dreams and have already had the opportunity to become the parents that they've always wanted to be. So they can't imagine spending that kind of money to create the family that they want because they didn't have to do that. But for many in the queer community, this is absolutely a reality. These questions echoed through my conversation with Calvin O'Silly, whose family creation journey included reciprocal IVF, egg retrieval, co-parenting, and later, the generous decision to allow embryo adoption through embryo connections. His story quietly highlights a reality many families face, that only some people ever reach a place where they can give back in this way, because getting there required access, stability, and resources in the first place. There were moments of laughter and expansiveness too, like my conversation with Saida Shabazz, where sexuality, parenting, and global upheaval collided. And yet, even in those moments, the undercurrent was clear. Parenting doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens against a backdrop of political unrest, economic pressure, and systems that rarely bend easily. And if any year on any calendar has absolutely highlighted that for the queer community, 2025 has done that in multiple ways. Guests like Ben, who is known on Instagram as Equity Ben, helped us dismantle geographic assumptions, reminding us that queer joy exists even in places often labeled unsafe. But he also named something else, that staying in those places, building family there, often means navigating fewer resources and less institutional support. But he reminded us that representation matters, that spending that time in those spaces, being out and proud and not cowering to the likes of the comments and the commentary of the people around us, helps to build bridges and helps people see how our families aren't all that different than anyone else's family. Once again, adoption was a powerful and celebrated theme this year. And in some cases, it was celebrated as much as anything because in the case of public adoption, it is more economically viable for those who don't have the resources to adopt privately or to undergo surrogacy or IVF. For some families, it is the only financially viable option. Conversations with Matthew Boudreau, Mark and Eben, Steph Vachon, Jamil Meyers, and Allison Olson pulled back the curtain on a system that is often unpredictable, emotionally taxing, and still shaped by bias, yet deeply rooted in love and commitment. And the families that are created through adoption saw themselves represented in children's books that highlighted the beauty of adoptive families and how lucky those families are to be able to be connected with birthing people who are putting their children up for adoption or whose children are in the system and are being adopted publicly. And it's a beautiful way to remind us that The opportunity to become a parent is always a gift that we should celebrate. And then there were the legal conversations with Rebecca Nyack, Sarah Cohen, and even Irish dad Seamus Carney Martoni, each making it clear that legal recognition is not automatic. It must be purchased, pursued, and protected. Contracts cost money. Court filings cost money. Appeals cost money. And when laws differ by province, state, or country, families are often forced to choose between proximity and protection. And in some cases, countries that we honestly believed were further ahead than we are here in North America seem to be taking giant leaps backwards. If you're not familiar with the challenges that many parents and hopeful parents are facing in Ireland, in France, in Italy, and beyond, then I strongly encourage you to reach out, ask questions, and find out more, because these people deserve to be parents just as much as anyone else, and they deserve to be recognized as parents as much as anyone else. And yet, in some cases, surrogacy is fully illegal. In some cases, two dads can't both be put as legal parents on a birth certificate. The list goes on and on. And so if you have the privilege of being able to be a queer parent and having your parental rights recognized, I encourage you to stand with me to help learn more, to help do more for those whose rights should fundamentally be there, but are not. Dara Roth Edney took the time to outline the opportunities and gifts that motivated therapists can offer when they're providing implications counseling, but also reminded us what many people receive instead. We discussed why there's frustration about being told that it is an exercise and expense that is required to see to completion, when it isn't something that most of our heterosexual peers need to experience in order to be able to create their own families. The way Dara explains the journey, though, makes it understandable, and it's easier to see how it could be beneficial in many cases. She doesn't leave any stone unturned when she's working with her clients. She makes sure that they understand all of the ins and outs and provides them with opportunities to ask questions and create relationships so that everything unfolds the way all parties are hoping it will unfold. We crossed oceans this year to Cyprus, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Australia, and beyond. And what became painfully clear is that where you live can determine not only how you build a family, but whether you can build one at all. Some families traveled internationally for care. Some relocated permanently. Some waited years. Some stopped trying. We talked about bodies, who carries, who doesn't, who can't, who chooses not to, with guests like Logan Blackburn-Izzet, Morgan Henry Kerr, Amy and Allison Cuddy, Jessica Walker, and Dr. Sue Ellen Carpenter. These conversations gently but firmly reminded us that even having a body capable of carrying a pregnancy does not guarantee access to care, especially when fertility clinics, testing, and medications are priced beyond reach. Did you catch the full conversation I had last spring with Dr. Carpenter, where she and I talked about InvoCell, which offers the chance for both parents with a uterus to carry the embryos? If you haven't listened to that one yet, I encourage you to go back and do that. It is one of the few exceptions I've ever made on this show to have someone who is not part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community be a guest on my show, because she works so closely with so many couples and people with uteruses and supports them so that they can both feel fully involved in the family creation process. And then there were stories that held grief and resilience in equal measure. Cassie and Marissa processing trauma. Teek Milan navigating loss shaped by legal systems that failed him. Danielle Venn, modeling authenticity even when the cost was personal. And again, what emerged was not just the diversity of queer families, but the reality that the path to parenthood is increasingly shaped by who can afford to keep going. And yet, people do. They pivot, they pause, they crowdfund, they borrow, they downsize, they move, and sometimes they redefine what family means. This podcast exists not to pretend those barriers aren't real, but to name them, to hold them up to the light, and to remind you that struggling within an unjust system is not a personal failure. As we step into a new year of becoming baby ready, I feel more committed than ever to telling these stories honestly, without gloss, without shame, and without pretending that love alone erases inequity. Because queer families are not rare, access is. So whether you're listening from a place of possibility or pause, whether you're in the dreaming phase, the saving phase, the grieving phase, or the maybe this isn't for us phase, you're welcome here. Your story still matters. Your longing still counts. And this space will continue to hold both the joy and the truth. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. Welcome to another year of becoming baby ready. And I want to highlight that this coming January, this month that we are in now, the dawn of the new year, will see Understory opening in Toronto at the corner of Church and Wellesley. It's a cafe and wine bar that is being opened by previous guests, Rowan and their partner, Danny. And the ads this month will be highlighting by Rowan this upcoming adventure that they have embarked upon. They have been waiting for months. It's been literally a whole gestation period in the making. And I am so excited to celebrate with them as they get ready to take on this new adventure. They have both done beautiful things in the past. If you haven't had the chance to listen to the episode that I recorded with them at the end of October, then I encourage you to do so. They were hoping they would open before Christmas. That didn't happen, but it is coming this winter, this month. I can't wait to sit in the Understory space with them, celebrating how far they've come. It's truly an honor to me that I have the opportunity to connect with folks the way that I do, to meet the people that I do, to share the stories that I do. And if you're listening to this show now and you haven't yet been a guest on the show, or you aren't even in the planning phase, but you have friends who've already been there and done that, then please take the time to reach out and tell me your story. Invite anyone that you know who's part of the queer community, who's created a family, or who works alongside those who are creating their families, because I would love to share everyone's stories. And when you are out there and you are looking at your podcast platform, whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, I'm going to also ask you to subscribe and then rate and review this show, because the more ratings we have, the more reviews we have, the more subscriptions we have, the broader this spreads, the further this goes, the more that people are able to get answers to the questions that they don't even know that they have. So I'm going to close out with this month's ad so that you can hear Rowan explaining exactly how things are going to go. And I invite you to join me every Thursday for a brand new episode of Becoming Baby Ready. Happy New Year, everyone.
Hi, I'm Rowan Jete-Knox. My partner Danny Gaeta and I were on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast this past fall, talking about our new baby, an inclusive, community-driven coffee shop and wine bar we're opening. It's called Understory, and it's situated in the heart of Toronto's LGBTQ+ village. Well, after 9 long months of building out this dream, and no, I'm not kidding, it's really been 9 months, I'm thrilled to tell you our doors will be opening this month, and we can't wait to welcome you there. So I hope to see you near the end of January, Toronto. Check out understorycafe.com and our socials for updates.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable pasts and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.